There are some really compelling trade rumors circulating right now that connect the Philadelphia Eagles with Las Vegas Raiders defensive end Maxx Crosby. This information is being reported by Sports Illustrated, and the headline captures the essence of the argument. An Eagles-Raiders trade for Maxx Crosby would address Philadelphia's pass rushing concerns and effectively extend their championship contention window. The logic presented is fairly straightforward. If the Eagles haven't already done so, they should be picking up the phone and initiating conversations with the Raiders front office regarding their superstar edge rusher. There have been persistent rumors and speculation swirling around Crosby's long-term future with the organization in Las Vegas. If he truly is available on the trade market, there aren't many players in the entire league who would represent a better schematic and cultural fit for the Eagles franchise. You have to consider the contractual situation as well. Crosby is under team control for 4 more seasons, and he's only 28 years old. He's right in the heart of his prime. If he were to become available, his acquisition would erase any and all questions about the Eagles' pass rush for the 2026 season and well beyond. This isn't just baseless speculation or fan fiction either. The connection between Crosby and Philadelphia has legitimate traction. NFL Network's Mike Garafolo has already gone on record, stating that he believes the Eagles would rank among the top 3 or top 5 destinations for Crosby if a trade scenario actually materializes. Garafolo was asked directly whether the Eagles could be a viable option for Crosby, and his response was emphatic. Big time. He elaborated on that, saying that if the situation opens up and every team is theoretically in the mix, you have to look at Philadelphia's recent behavior. They tried to trade for Micah Parsons within the division, right? So why wouldn't they then be considered a strong contender for a player like Crosby, especially if the Raiders are motivated to move him out of the conference entirely? Garafolo stated that he would certainly put the Eagles in that top 3, top 5 grouping for Maxx Crosby if and when this whole thing opens up. And he personally believes it is going to open up, meaning an actual trade is a real possibility. It's a slightly awkward way to phrase it, but the meaning is clear. Following up on that reporting, CBS Sports' Tyler Sullivan floated an intriguing mock trade proposal. The proposed compensation sounds significant, but it's worth examining. Sullivan wrote that the Raiders would receive a 2026 first-round pick, specifically the 23rd overall selection, and a 2027 second-round pick. In return, the Eagles would acquire edge rusher Maxx Crosby. This proposal is consistent with Howie Roseman's established history. He is never shy about making a splash in the trade market. Oftentimes, he's the one leading the charge on jaw-dropping off-season moves that reshape the roster. In fact, we already know that Roseman and the Eagles reportedly checked in with the Cowboys to explore the feasibility of a trade for Micah Parsons. So the proposed framework is a first and a second-round pick for Maxx Crosby. Now, listening, I'm never going to pretend like I have any strong internal sense of valuation when it comes to draft pick compensation. I find it absolutely hilarious, and I talk about this every single offseason. I find it hilarious that all these analysts and commentators throw out these specific numbers with such confidence. They'll say things like, I'll pay him $23 million, but not $24 million. And it's like, oh, really? You have such a precise threshold that 23 is acceptable, but 24 is a deal breaker? I have no idea how to make sense of any of that. Everyone just pretends like they do. They all pretend like they have a deeply felt, almost intuitive sense of the difference in value between the 27th pick in the 4th round and the 20th pick in the 5th round, or something along those lines. And it's just like, okay, sure, whatever you say. The general managers who get paid millions of dollars barely have any idea how to make it all work sometimes. And yet you and I are supposed to have it all figured out? No. No way. That is where I will 1000% defer to someone like Howie Roseman. I will absolutely defer to his judgment. My only question mark, and this is where things get complicated, revolves around the offensive line. The offensive line is a situation that needs to be addressed. Even if Lane Johnson decides to come back for another season, how confident are you really going to feel in him at his age? And so, do you need to preserve that draft capital specifically to invest in offensive linemen right now? It's a genuinely tricky situation. It's an especially tricky situation when you've already won a championship, which they obviously just did. And yet you still have this incredible core nucleus of players. You still have Jalen Hurts, you have Jordan Mailata, you have Jalen Carter, you have A.J. Brown, you have Devonta Smith, and you're just trying to figure out which players on your roster are approaching the back end of their prime. Guys like A.J., Brown and Devonta Smith and Saquon Barkley, they don't have 10 years ahead of them at this elite level. I'm not saying they're leaving their prime today, although you could make a reasonable argument that A.J. Brown is already starting that gradual decline. And so you are trying to figure out how to extend this window. This is exactly what I said last season going into the offseason, after they won the Super Bowl. It was never about them repeating or anything like that. It was about continuing to build this team strategically to try to win another Super Bowl over the next 3 years, whatever that path ends up looking like. And you do want to be able to take advantage of having Jalen, Saquon, Devonta, and AJ. Those were the main four, because in the blink of an eye, you're going to be sitting there saying, Devonta is looking a little bit slower, and then you're going to look at Jalen Hurts and realize he's 32 years old. You just reach that point where you realize it's not quite what it used to be. But this is where it's a little bit different when you've already won a Super Bowl. If they hadn't won one yet, then you kind of really do go all in. You take that massive swing and you say, fine, I'll get rid of my first round and my second round and my third round and whatever else it takes, because we're trying to win that Super Bowl right now. There's a desperation that comes with that. Look at the Detroit Lions. They should have that urgency. The Philadelphia Eagles don't necessarily have that same level of desperation, and that's where it becomes tricky. I don't know how you stick that landing. I honestly don't know what you do. And that's where the offensive line situation becomes a critical factor. If you're the Eagles and you feel confident that your offensive line is still impenetrable, if you believe it's still awesome and dominant, if Landon Dickerson is healthy and Cam Jurgens is healthy, and yeah, Lane Johnson is getting older, but he's still a monster and ready to go, and you've got Mickey Becton in the mix, and you're feeling great about the whole unit, then you can absolutely take that swing on Maxx Crosby, because you're not really trying to fill many other significant holes. But trying to figure out the offensive line situation is a huge, huge obstacle. The Eagles know they need to maximize that unit. They know they need that foundation. And I don't know what options are out there. I don't know what conversations are being had behind closed doors. I don't know the true sense of the player's health status or potential retirement considerations. So to me, that's what kind of leaves the door open for me to simply say, I don't know. Honestly. If this were last year, going into this past season, the Eagles were confident. They had that sense of, hey, our offensive line should still be great. Saquon is healthy. AJ, Devonta, Jalen, we're feeling good about it. Then taking a big swing on a Micah Parsons or a Myles Garrett or a Maxx Crosby, that's an easy play. That's a no-brainer. This year, there are seemingly more problems that need to be solved. More variables, more uncertainty. I'll tell you this much. Maxx Crosby obviously wants to come to Philadelphia. He wants it. He knows it. I'm not going to get too lost in reading the tea leaves of a little social media post, but he has publicly praised Philadelphia. Not just the Philadelphia franchise, but the fan base. He has said things along the lines of, you dream your whole life of playing essentially for a team like the Philadelphia Eagles, for those fans. It's remarkable. He has praised that atmosphere. He wants to play ball, and he wants to do it in front of an avalanche of fans. He wants to be part of that experience. And it's something that so many players who have played for Philadelphia teams in general have talked about, whether it's the Phillies or the Eagles. Probably not the Sixers as much, but definitely the Phillies and the Eagles. They just say, man, it's indescribable. They love it. And Maxx Crosby is that kind of dude, and he wants it. And you probably, as long as everyone stays healthy, you do get like 4 years of Maxx Crosby's peak performance. If you're looking at a Jalen Hurts timeline or a Devonta Smith timeline, you probably look at that and say, yeah, you know what? Best case scenario, seriously, best case scenario. Perfect scenario where everyone is healthy, coaching is stable, and the offense is great, but the defense is a liability. Best case scenario, you've got probably around 4 years where you're kind of starting to look around and say, all right, I don't know. It's time to start to look to build a new team. Seriously. A lot of the faces that you've all come to know and love, the players you feel are the absolute foundation of this team, you're going to look at them and say, I don't know. Things change. Just look at the 2 most recent dominant dynasties we've had, the Chiefs and the Patriots. There's a lot of turnover there. A lot of faces come and go. And even if we look at some of the other legendary quarterbacks who didn't play for 55 years like Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Brett Favre, I don't want to go too far back. Brett Favre is honestly further back than I would have even liked to go in the first place. But the point is, You just don't see this team the way the Eagles have been constructed essentially since 2022. You don't see them all just staying together for the next 10 years. It just doesn't happen. That's not the way this league works. And so, if you're sitting there saying, hey, let's do it right now, let's see what we've got, even though we already won the Super Bowl, our mentality is still to kind of go boom or bust right now because we think that in the next 3 or 4 years anyway, we're going to have to probably really retool this thing pretty significantly. So then maybe you do make that move. I wouldn't be surprised. I wanted to say this earlier, and I'll kind of wrap this segment up here because I was thinking about Maxx Crosby and defenses in general. I just wouldn't be surprised if we see that pendulum swing in the NFL. I've been talking about this a little bit, the pendulum swinging back and forth between offense and defense, the importance of the run game, and how things are constantly changing in the league. But there was definitely that period where teams were undervaluing or devaluing defense. And I wouldn't be surprised if a team like the Philadelphia Eagles really does go all in on defense in a significant way. And listen, this is true for every single team, but it just feels truer than ever right now. If you have an awesome defense, just a suffocating shutdown defense, and you have a good offensive line, and you can run the football effectively, I don't know if you need anything else. I'm serious. I don't know if you need anything else. You're essentially just asking your offense to get like a touchdown a game, maybe 2, and kick a few field goals, and you win. You dominate time of possession. Your defense takes the head off the other team's quarterback. And yeah, if you still have a quarterback who can obviously make big plays and deliver big throws like Jalen Hurts has proven he can, and you have weapons like Devonta and AJ, it's just a lethal combination. So I wouldn't be surprised. But that's where Howie Roseman becomes so fascinating to watch. Maybe he goes out and gets Crosby, and maybe you essentially flip AJ Brown to make it work. Now, I don't mean a one-for-one trade where they just swap players. But think about it. The draft capital that you give up for Maxx Crosby, you could potentially get back by trading AJ Brown. And now you still can draft an offensive lineman and a receiver with those picks. So you end up with Maxx Crosby on defense, a new wide receiver, and you've addressed the offensive line. Again, all of this just makes me think. I don't know how general managers honestly make decisions. It's tough, man. It's not easy. In my mind, I'm like, oh, that actually kind of sounds interesting and thought-provoking. But that might be a terrible idea in reality because someone in the building might say, no, we don't have time to deal with developing a rookie wide receiver. We need production now. I think so much of it depends on the timeline and who's available and how confident you are in your evaluation of said players that you could draft or pick up in the offseason. Let's not pretend that Mekhi Becton was this massive acquisition that everyone celebrated. People weren't saying, oh, the Eagles got Mekhi Becton, and now their offensive line is going to be dominant. Nobody was saying that whatsoever. Nobody was saying, oh yeah, man, Darius Slay and James Bradbury are going to transform the secondary. Nobody was saying that. When they went back and got C.J. Gardner-Johnson, nobody was saying, now this defense is legit. Nobody was saying that. Even with Saquon Barkley, the narrative was, I don't know, they overpaid for a running back. So a lot of the moves are not always clear in the moment. The Eagles are still very much a wait-and-see organization. If you remember last offseason, everybody was screaming, Myles Garrett, Myles Garrett, Myles Garrett. And it's like, yeah, that would have been fascinating to see. Would that have been the difference between winning a Super Bowl and not? You definitely would still feel uncomfortable with the offense because none of the offensive personnel would have changed, but your defense would have been significantly better. And although it's hard to see what you would have had to give up, I forget if that was before the draft or after, would they have not been able to then draft some of the players who they ended up drafting this year? It has that domino effect. It's hard to really know how everything would have necessarily unfolded, but Maxx Crosby is definitely an intriguing piece to bring to this team. Imagine him lining up next to Jalen Carter, Crosby, and Jordan Davis. Jordan Davis. I think you're in a fascinating spot. You've got Nolan Smith, you've got Quinion Mitchell, you've got Cooper DeJean, you've got Reed Blankenship. You build a pretty rocking defense, man, and then you get to play offense however you want. You want to run the ball and take care of the ball and not turn it over. And maybe that's where A.J. Brown's happiness comes into play. If he's still unhappy, listen. If you build that truly impenetrable defense and you fix your offensive line and you can get back to wanting to run the ball and be kind of like a more conservative offense but still ready for the big plays when necessary, And if AJ isn't on board with that philosophy, then okay. You can flip him, get some draft capital, and continue to fix the offense. So, I don't know. There are options. They're interesting, and there's a lot at stake, because the intention is to try to win another Super Bowl. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the potential for Maxx Crosby to apparently save the Philadelphia Eagles? According to the article, let me know your thoughts. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get to some discussions. Let's get into some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all generally feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.